Damien Carter stood at the floor-to-ceiling window of his penthouse, staring down at the city lights sprawling endlessly beneath him. The world saw him as a self-made billionaire, a man who had everything, but all he could see was a photograph, a smiling face framed in gold, a memory that had haunted him for 15 years. Aaliyah James. His queen. His first love. The one who had slipped away when life forced them apart, the one he had never stopped loving. 15 years of success, of wealth, of power, none of it had filled the void she left behind. He traced the outline of her face in the photo with a finger, a faint ache in his chest that had never gone away. He could remember that summer as if it had happened yesterday, her laughter spilling like music across the playground, the warmth of her hand in his, the promise of forever whispered beneath the oak tree in her backyard. He had been just a boy then, dreaming big in a neighborhood that wasn't kind to dreamers. She had been everything, bright, unstoppable, and utterly his. But circumstances had torn them apart. Her family moved across the country for college, and by the time he got up the courage to tell her how much he loved her, she was gone. Damien's phone buzzed insistently on the marble counter, a call from his assistant. He ignored it, letting it vibrate. No one could break this moment. The penthouse was silent except for the hum of the city and the persistent rhythm of his own heartbeat. 15 years had passed, but tonight something felt different. He could almost feel her presence in the room, the ghost of her smile brushing against his skin. Meanwhile, across town, Aaliyah James adjusted the strap of her worn leather bag as she hurried down the sidewalk. Life had not been easy, but she had carved out a path for herself. She ran a small nonprofit dedicated to helping children in underserved communities, a passion she had carried since her teenage years. Her days were long and her nights were often longer, but she never complained. She had learned to rely on herself, to protect her heart, and to embrace her independence. Love had been a complicated chapter she had long since closed, or so she thought. The gala was in full swing. Damien entered, the room parting instinctively for him, whispers following in his wake. Women in elegant gowns, men in tailored suits, yet his eyes sought only one face. And then he saw her. Standing by the grand staircase, laughing softly at something a colleague said, her posture graceful, her presence magnetic. Aaliyah. His heart skipped, stumbled, then raced uncontrollably. She did not see him at first. She was entirely absorbed in her world, and for a moment, he allowed himself the selfish luxury of watching, memorizing. Her hair fell in soft curls over her shoulders, the way it had when they were teenagers. The curve of her smile, the spark in her eyes, it was all the same and yet entirely different. Life had shaped her, refined her, but it had not diminished the beauty he had fallen in love with 15 years ago. Damien approached, each step measured but filled with urgency. His mind raced. What do I say? How do I start after 15 years? He rehearsed 1,000 phrases, none of which seemed sufficient. And then she turned. Their eyes met. Time halted. Aaliyah? His voice was rougher than he intended, disbelief lacing the syllable. She froze, her eyes widening as recognition flickered across her face. Damien, she breathed, a mixture of shock, uncertainty, and something else he couldn't name. 15 years, he said softly, almost to himself. I've waited 15 years. Her hands clenched at her sides and she shook her head slightly, disbelief rippling through her. 15 years, you waited for me? Her voice was a whisper, fragile yet charged with emotion. Yes, he said, stepping closer, unwilling to leave the distance between them. Every single day. Every moment. I never stopped. For a heartbeat, she looked away, tears threatening to fall, and he wanted nothing more than to wipe them away. He remembered how she used to cry when she thought she had disappointed him. How he had promised never to let the world hurt her. And now, 15 years later, he still felt the same protective, desperate need. Damien, I don't know what to say, she admitted, her voice cracking. I built my life. I moved on. I thought I was okay. Moving on doesn't erase love, Aaliyah. It doesn't erase what we had. I never erased it. He stepped closer, closing the gap, his hand brushing against hers almost accidentally, sending sparks of the past racing through both of them. Her breath caught, memories flooding back in a torrent, promises whispered under the old oak tree, late-night talks about dreams and fears, the comfort of his presence that had once made her feel invincible. I thought I forgot you, she admitted, voice trembling. You didn't forget. You could never forget me, he replied. And I couldn't forget you. Not once. Not for a day. Around them, the gala continued, oblivious to the seismic shift in the room, but neither Damien nor Aaliyah noticed. Time had folded, and they were once again in their own world, 15 years of absence condensed into a single impossible moment. "I've dreamed of this," Damien whispered. "Dreamed of seeing you again, of telling you that I've never stopped loving you. I've tried to live without you, tried to convince myself it was enough, but it's not. It was never enough." Aaliyah's eyes filled, memories and feelings she had buried rushing to the surface. Aaliyah's hands trembled slightly as she folded her arms, trying to steady herself. "Damien, 15 years, she repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. "How do you just wait? How do you live every day hoping for something that might never happen?" He took a slow breath, letting the weight of those years hang between them. "Because some things are worth waiting for, Aaliyah. You are worth waiting for. I never stopped thinking about you, about us, about everything we dreamed of when we were younger." His eyes searched hers, desperate for any sign that she still felt even a fraction of what he had carried all these years. Aaliyah looked down, the memory of their last day together crashing into her. She had cried silently on her bedroom floor, clutching a letter he never received, telling him she would always love him, even if life forced them apart. But then she had thrown herself into a life that demanded focus, independence, and self-reliance. Love had been a luxury she could not afford, or so she thought. She struggled, her words faltering. "I don't know what to say. I've lived 15 years thinking I could move on, thinking I was okay. And now you're here and I don't know who I am supposed to be right now." "You're still the woman I fell in love with," Damien said firmly, stepping closer, letting the gap between them shrink to nearly nothing. "Strong, independent, brilliant, and yet still mine in ways I can't explain." Aaliyah felt heat rise to her cheeks, a rush of emotions she hadn't allowed herself to feel in over a decade. Part of her wanted to run, to remind herself she had survived without him. Another part, the part that had never really let go, wanted to throw herself into his arms and never leave. "Do you even know what I went through?" she asked quietly. "Do you have any idea how many nights I spent alone, wondering if you were even thinking about me?" "I thought about you every day," he admitted. "Every single night. I couldn't go to sleep without seeing your face in my mind. Without wondering if you were happy, safe, without imagining what you might be doing, who you might be with. And the truth? Nothing mattered. Nothing I achieved, nothing I bought, nothing I built meant anything without you." Her eyes stung with tears she refused to release. "You don't understand. I had to survive. I had to protect myself. I couldn't risk letting someone hurt me again. And you had your life, your empire. I thought maybe we were just two people from different worlds." Damien's hand found hers, gripping it tightly, his thumb brushing the back of her hand in a silent plea. "We were never from different worlds, Aaliyah. You were my world. You always will be. I don't care about empires or money or status. I care about you. Always you." Aaliyah's chest tightened, her mind spinning with memories of teenage promises, first kisses under the oak tree, and late-night talks about everything and nothing. How had 15 years passed, and yet he still had the power to shake her to her core. "I don't know if I can just jump back into this," she admitted, her voice fragile. "We're not the same people we were. I'm not the same girl who ran away crying, and you're not the boy I left behind." "Maybe not," Damien said softly, tilting his head to study her face. "But love, real love, doesn't care about time or distance or circumstances. It waits. It fights. It survives. And ours survived, Aaliyah. It never died." She swallowed hard, the truth of his words slicing through her defenses. She had spent so long convincing herself that she was okay without him, that she had moved on. But deep down she had always carried a piece of him, tucked away in her heart like a secret flame she refused to ignite. And now, looking at him, she realized that flame had never gone out. Do you even realize how insane that sounds?" she asked, her voice trembling. "You waited 15 years. 15 years, Damien. Some people would say that's obsession. Some people would say you should have moved on." He smiled, a small, rueful smile that held more emotion than any words could convey. "Maybe it is obsession. Maybe it's madness. But it's my madness. And it's for you. I never stopped hoping, Aaliyah. Even when I told myself I had to let go, even when I thought I was strong enough to survive without you. I wasn't. I never was. And I never will be." Her breath caught in her throat, the intensity of his words unraveling her carefully constructed barriers. She had spent years building walls around her heart, but now, with him standing there, those walls crumbled under the weight of love she thought had been lost forever. "You really mean that?" she asked, her voice barely audible. "After all this time, you still love me?" "I never stopped," he said, his eyes locked on hers, unwavering. Not for a day. Not for a single second. And I don't want to wait another day to tell you that. I don't want to live another moment without you knowing the truth. Tears finally spilled over, running freely down her cheeks, and he reached out, gently brushing them away with the back of his hand. The touch was electric, a reminder of every memory, every stolen moment, every whispered promise they had once shared. I don't know if I can just give in, she said, her voice shaking. I'm scared, Damien. I'm scared it won't work, that I'll lose you again. You won't lose me, he whispered, leaning closer, his forehead almost touching hers. I'll fight for you. I'll wait as long as it takes. I'll do whatever it takes to be with you. Just say the word and I'll prove it to you. For a long moment she didn't speak. She could feel her heart pounding in her chest, could feel the years of longing, of pain, of unspoken words, closing the distance between them. She realized that fear had kept her from what she had always wanted, from what she had never truly stopped needing. I don't know if I can trust myself, she admitted, voice breaking. But I still love you, Damien. I never stopped. His lips curved into a smile, relief and joy flooding his expression. That's all I needed to hear, he said softly, his voice thick with emotion. Nothing else matters. Nothing else ever will. The noise of the gala faded around them, the room shrinking until it was just the two of them, years of longing condensed into one perfect, impossible moment. Damien held her hands in his, feeling the warmth, the life, the reality of her existence after all those years. And Aaliyah, for the first time in a decade and a half, allowed herself to believe that the love she had buried so deeply had never truly been lost. She tilted her head, searching his face, memorizing every line, every shadow, every flicker of emotion. So, what happens now? She asked quietly, almost afraid to break the spell of the moment. Now, he said, his thumb brushing over her knuckles. Now we start. Now we take every second we've missed and make it ours. No more waiting. No more pretending. We're here. We're together. And nothing can change that. Her lips trembled and she nodded, a tear slipping down her cheek. Together, she whispered. Together, he echoed, his heart finally at peace, his soul finally home. The following days were a whirlwind of emotions neither of them had anticipated. Damien couldn't focus on his empire, on deals, on board meetings. His mind was consumed entirely by Aaliyah. And Aaliyah, despite telling herself she was careful, found every thought circling back to him. She tried to stay busy, to immerse herself in her nonprofit work, but each phone notification made her heart leap with hope or dread. One evening, Damien invited her to dinner at his penthouse. The city lights stretched endlessly outside the glass walls, and for the first time in 15 years, they were alone, uninterrupted, with only their shared history between them. You know, Damien began, pouring them both glasses of wine, I never stopped imagining this moment. Not just seeing you again but actually being with you, really talking to you without the world in between. Aaliyah sat across from him, her fingers wrapped around the stem of her glass. And now that it's happening, what do you want, Damien? Do you want me to forget 15 years and pretend like nothing happened? Do you want me to just dive in? He shook his head slowly. No, I don't want you to dive in. I want you to take your time. I want you to trust me. I want to show you that everything I've said is real. That love isn't just words, it's actions, it's consistency, it's choosing someone over and over again no matter how long it takes. She looked at him, trying to measure the depth of his sincerity. 15 years had changed them both, but some things, like the way he looked at her, felt timeless. You've built a life, Damien. You're a billionaire. You have everything. Why does it have to be me? Why not someone easier, someone available, someone who wouldn't require all this history? Because no one else was ever enough, he said, his voice low, firm, unwavering. I've tried to fill the space you left, Aaliyah. People, places, experiences, none of it worked. There was always you. Always. The weight of his words settled heavily between them. Aaliyah realized that her walls, her carefully constructed life of independence, were beginning to crumble. She had spent years convincing herself she didn't need him, but now, with him sitting mere feet away, she felt the truth she had buried for too long. I'm scared, she admitted, her voice almost breaking. I don't want to be hurt again. I don't want to lose you after all this. You won't lose me, he said firmly, reaching across the table to take her hand in his. I'll fight for you, Aaliyah. I've been fighting for you my entire life. I'm not going anywhere. But even as they held hands, the conversation began to shift toward the realities of their lives. 15 years apart had created not just distance but differences, habits, priorities, perspectives that had evolved independently. I need to be honest, Aaliyah said, pulling her hand back slightly. I've built a life. My work, my friends, my routine. I can't just drop all of that. And if we're going to do this, it has to be real. It has to be sustainable. Damien nodded, his jaw tight but understanding. I know. I'm not asking you to drop anything. I'm asking for a chance. A chance to build something together that honors both of our lives. I can wait. I'll wait however long it takes. She studied him, seeing both his determination and vulnerability. 15 years had passed, but the essence of who they were, their connection, their shared past, was unmistakable. Yet doubt lingered. Could love truly survive 15 years of separation? Could they navigate the complexities of their evolved lives without shattering what they were trying to rebuild? I need time, she said finally. I can't just rush into this. I need to see that it's real, that it can work. Take all the time you need, he replied, his eyes never leaving hers. I'm not going anywhere. And neither is my love. Days turned into weeks, and their tentative steps toward a relationship were filled with both wonder and tension. Each encounter was charged with emotion, moments of laughter, flashes of old familiarity, but also moments of friction. Small disagreements about lifestyle, priorities, and expectations tested their patience. One afternoon they found themselves walking through a quiet park, the same kind of park where they had spent hours talking as teenagers. Damien took her hand, but she pulled it back, her eyes wary. Damien, we can't just pretend the past 15 years didn't happen, she said softly. We're not kids anymore. We're adults. And adults have responsibilities, realities, limitations. I know, he said, his tone patient but firm. And I accept all of it. All your responsibilities, all your limitations. I love you for who you are now, not for who you were or who I thought you might be. Aaliyah looked at him, searching for any sign of manipulation, of ulterior motive. But there was none. Only honesty. Only love. Only the truth that had carried him through a decade and a half of waiting. I don't want to get hurt again, she admitted, tears threatening to spill. And I know loving you again, it's going to hurt if it doesn't work. It's worth it, he said without hesitation. It will hurt if it doesn't work, yes. But it will be worth every moment if it does. And I'll do everything in my power to make sure it does. I promise you that. They walked in silence for a moment, the past and present colliding in a delicate balance. Aaliyah realized that love, the kind that survived 15 years and countless obstacles, was not something that could be measured by time alone. It was measured by commitment, by resilience, by the willingness to fight for someone even when it's hard. Finally she stopped and faced him. Okay, she whispered barely audibly. Okay, Damien. I'll try. But we do this slowly. Step by step. And you have to promise me, no secrets. No waiting. No pretending. I promise, he said, his voice low, steady, filled with conviction. No secrets. No waiting. No pretending. Just us. Finally, just us. As they stood there, hand in hand, Aaliyah felt the wall she had built around her heart start to crumble. She felt the old flame, buried for years, ignite once more, and for the first time in a decade and a half, she allowed herself to imagine a future with Damien. A future where love had not been lost, where patience and devotion had finally been rewarded. And Damien, feeling the warmth of her hand, the closeness of her presence, realized that the years of longing, the nights spent imagining her face, the constant ache of absence, all of it had led to this moment. 15 years of waiting had not been in vain. He had his queen back and he would never let her go again. But as the city hummed around them, a shadow of uncertainty lingered. Love was not just about reunion, it was about navigating the complexities of life, trust, and the scars left by time. They were together, yes, but the real test, the one that would prove whether 15 years of love could truly withstand reality, was only just beginning. Weeks passed, each day testing the limits of patience, trust, and vulnerability. Damien and Aaliyah had begun to navigate their renewed relationship carefully, balancing the excitement of reunion with the reality of the lives they had built apart. Every meeting, every conversation, carried the weight of years, unspoken words, and unresolved pain. One evening, Damien asked Aaliyah to meet him at his penthouse. The city glittered below, and inside, the space was warm, intimate, stripped of the grandeur that usually accompanied his life. He had something to show her, something that would make her understand the depth of what he had carried for 15 years. As she entered, he handed her a small, worn box. I want you to see something, he said softly. Curious and slightly apprehensive, Aaliyah opened it. Inside were letters, photos, and keepsakes, tiny fragments of their youth carefully preserved. Every item told a story, a memory of laughter, promise and love. Her hands trembled as she held the first letter, recognizing his familiar handwriting. "You kept all of this, all these years?" she whispered, tears threatening to fall. "I kept you," Damien said simply. "Every memory, every feeling, every hope. I've carried you in my heart for 15 years, Aaliyah. I've never let you go. And now I want to share it with you so you know nothing has changed." Aaliyah clutched the box to her chest, overwhelmed. I don't know what to say. I thought I had moved on, thought I had survived without you. But seeing this, I realize I never really did. You never left my heart either." Damien stepped closer, taking her hands in his. "We've both grown, we've both changed, but love doesn't disappear because time passes. It waits, it endures, it survives everything. And ours survived." She looked up at him, searching his eyes for any hint of doubt, any sign that the 15 years of absence had hardened him. But all she saw was truth, vulnerability, and unwavering devotion. "So what now?" she asked softly, her voice trembling. "Now," he said, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face, "we begin again. We build the life we should have had, step by step, together. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not leaving your side, not now, not ever." For a long moment, Aaliyah let herself simply breathe, let herself feel the truth of his words. The fear that had clung to her for years began to dissolve, replaced by something fragile, powerful, and undeniable: hope. "I want that," she whispered, finally letting herself smile through her tears. "I want us, together. But we do it slowly, carefully. I need to believe this can last." Damien nodded, pressing a gentle kiss to her forehead. "We will make it last, Aaliyah. I promise you. Every day, every moment, I will prove it to you. Nothing can take this from us now." Their hands entwined, they spent the evening sharing memories, laughing at old jokes and talking about their dreams, some deferred, some new, all intertwined. The city outside continued its endless rhythm, oblivious to the quiet miracle unfolding within the walls of the penthouse. But love, they both knew, was not without challenges. Damien's empire demanded attention, schedules collided, and Aaliyah's nonprofit work pulled her in different directions. They faced disagreements, small but meaningful, as they navigated the balance between passion, duty, and commitment. And yet, each argument, each moment of tension, was tempered by their determination to make it work. One evening, after a particularly long day, Aaliyah sat on the balcony, staring at the skyline. Damien joined her quietly, slipping an arm around her shoulders. "You okay?" he asked, his voice gentle. "I am," she said, leaning into him. "Just thinking about everything. 15 years, and now here we are. I can't believe it's real." "It is real," he said firmly. "And it will stay real. No matter what comes, we face it together. I've waited for you, Aaliyah. I've fought for you and I will keep fighting. Always." She looked up at him, her eyes glistening. "I believe you," she said softly. "I believe in us." And in that moment, all the years of longing, the pain of separation, the fear of loss, melted away. There was only them, two souls reunited after 15 years, stronger for the trials, wiser for the distance, and bound by a love that had refused to die. Damien pulled her close, holding her as if he could shield her from everything the world might throw at them. And Aaliyah, for the first time in 15 years, allowed herself to fully surrender to the love she had never stopped feeling. They spent the night talking, planning, and simply being with one another, savoring each moment as if it were both a gift and a triumph. The city lights outside their window mirrored the spark in their hearts, bright and unyielding. In the weeks that followed, their relationship blossomed. Damien learned to accommodate Aaliyah's independence, her routines, and her passion for her work. Aaliyah learned to trust Damien's love, his patience, and his unwavering commitment. Each day was a step forward, a testament to the power of enduring love. One afternoon, Damien surprised her with a visit to the old oak tree where they had first confessed their dreams. He had brought a small bench, a plaque, and a letter he had written years ago but never sent. "I wanted to bring this back," he said, handing her the letter, "to remind us of where we began and to show that nothing we felt was ever wasted." Aaliyah took the letter, her fingers brushing his. She read it slowly, each word a bridge across time, a testament to their enduring bond. Tears streamed down her face, and Damien held her, feeling the warmth of her love wrap around him like a long-lost home. "We waited 15 years, she whispered, looking into his eyes. "But we're here. We made it." "Yes," he said, his voice steady and full of certainty. "We made it. And I promise you, I'll never let anything take you from me again. You're my queen, Aaliyah. Always have been, always will be." She leaned in, resting her head against his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart, the truth of his words and the reality of their shared future. Always, she whispered, sealing the promise between them. The years of separation, the trials, the waiting, all of it had led to this moment. Love, patient and relentless, had triumphed. Damien and Aaliyah had proven that some bonds cannot be broken, some hearts cannot be silenced, and some love stories are worth waiting for no matter how long it takes. And as they walked away from the tree hand in hand, toward a future neither of them could have imagined 15 years ago, they knew one thing for certain. Their story was far from over, and this time nothing would stand in their way.
Hey family, thank you so much for watching. If this story touched you in any way, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps the channel grow. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another emotional story. And before you go, drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from.